My second life is to live with the woman I love. I've filed for divorce, so get out." Out of nowhere, Ken suddenly dropped the bombshell. "What? You filed for divorce?" I couldn't grasp the meaning behind Ken's words and repeated them, parrot-like. "Yeah, you haven't been doing your housework properly lately, have you? That's a fatal flaw for a wife who's supposed to support her husband. So, I got myself a new girlfriend. It had to be done, right? All right. I'll get ready to leave now." About an hour after I left the house, my cell phone started vibrating incessantly. The screen displayed Ken. Checking it, it seemed that I had missed dozens of calls from him in the short time I was distracted. I answered the phone, exasperated by the noise. "Hey! What's going on? I didn't hear anything about this." Unaware of everything, I replied calmly to Ken. "It seems you've finally noticed. Don't rush, the fun is just beginning. My name is Kate. I'm a 48-year-old housewife. As a teenager, I dreamed of becoming a fashion designer and begged my parents to let me attend a design school for 3 years. However, reality was not so kind, and I lost in the brutal job market. Though my parents said nothing, I was deeply shocked by this reality. Losing my drive, I worked part-time at a small local restaurant while continuing my design activities on the side. Mia, a friend I met at design school, supported my efforts more than anyone. She dreamed of owning her brand one day and went on to work for a major design firm. Yet, Mia never boasted and maintained our relationship after graduation, always being on my side. I learned that Mia had quit her job about 5 years after graduation. Still working part-time at the restaurant and nearly giving up on my dream as a designer, I heard from Mia after a long time. I had assumed she was just busy with work and had accepted that without doubt. However, the message from Mia was unexpected. She had quit her job. When I asked why, she said it was due to severe harassment at the company. Since our student days, Mia, who was exceptionally beautiful, had been envied by the women at the office and faced harassment daily. Fed up with this daily torment and due to her physical and mental distress, she decided to resign. "We might not be able to meet for a while." With those words, decades passed without any contact from Mia. Witnessing my best friend's suffering, I completely gave up on my path as a designer. Around that time, daily visits to the restaurant by Ken, whom I was attracted to, might have also affected my feelings. Later, we married and began a happy life. After some time, we were blessed with a daughter, and I had completely forgotten about my teenage dreams and even Mia's existence. Since our daughter Sally got a job last year, it's been just Ken and me. Half relieved that child-rearing was over, and half lonely for not living with my close-knit Sally, my feelings were complex. Ken, who holds a senior position at a prestigious company, and I were somewhat aware of our reasonably good marital relationship. Sally played a significant role in maintaining our bond, having been reluctant to leave home as it was comfortable for her. She was close to me, which seemed to contribute to her hesitance to leave. However, to pursue her dreams, she had to leave, and she reluctantly moved out. After Sally left, I noticed that my conversations with Ken had noticeably decreased. Ken, who was never much of a talker, seemed to create a somewhat unpleasant atmosphere in the house. It was purely about the stagnation in the atmosphere of the place, not something visibly perceptible. Yet, I felt a significant gap widening between us. It wasn't just that our daughter had become independent and it was just the two of us again after a long time, there must be some other reason. I had no concrete evidence, but that's how I felt deep down. As if confirming my thoughts, Ken's attitude towards me worsened day by day. I could accept the lack of conversation, but it was a different story when hostility was directed at me from Ken. "Hey, now that Sally is gone and parenting is over, can't you make a bit better meals?" During dinner, Ken suddenly blurted this out. Taken aback by this unexpected blow, I could do nothing but apologize at that moment. From then on, Ken openly started to attack me. Once I became aware of it, even if I wanted to stop it, I couldn't. I began to live my days worrying about Ken. Would this make Ken angry? Was I doing something that would bother him? My life became dominated by such thoughts. Mom, you seem a bit down lately, are you okay? Whenever her company had long holidays, Sally would come home. Out of the blue, she asked me this. Startled by Sally's remark, I hastily denied it. Not at all. Maybe I'm just getting old. While I laughed it off, Sally looked at me quizzically but didn't probe further. Mom, call me anytime if something's up. On the morning she was returning to her place, Sally said this with concern. For a moment, I almost cried out, help me. But my reason wouldn't allow it. I'm fine. Just take care of yourself, Sally. I put on a brave face and watched as Sally left for her place. Despite being careful not to let Sally catch on, a devastating truth shattered my heart. I had discovered Ken was having an affair with another woman. The suspicion arose from a trivial doubt. From Ken's shirts thrown into the washing machine, I could faintly smell women's perfume. I thought it must have been from some social drinking session related to work, but that didn't seem to be the case. I began to think this because the same scent came from Ken's shirts daily. It's unlikely he'd go to such places every day. If so, Ken must be going there personally. At that moment, it was a small curiosity and a means of revenge against Ken, who always attacked me. I intended to hold his weakness and give him a taste of his own medicine. But my plan crumbled easily. Ken left the office and headed to an apartment. From a distance, I could only confirm that the person Ken called out from inside and disappeared back with was undoubtedly a woman. Ken entered the woman's apartment without hesitation and didn't come out for hours. After seeing Ken emerge from the woman's apartment, I ran ahead frantically and returned home. I hadn't done anything wrong, yet my heart was pounding uncontrollably, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. From that day on, I fell into a state of extreme apathy. Dragging myself to the hospital, I was diagnosed with depression. The cumulative mental stress from living with Ken, compounded by this shock, had led to the onset of my illness. Can't we do something to keep this from affecting my daily life? I explained desperately to the doctor and decided to manage my lethargy with medication. Even though I often found my body unresponsive even with medication, I could at least manage daily chores. However, that didn't mean I had found a way to change the situation. It was clear that Ken was the cause of my distress. Yet, I couldn't find a way to eliminate the cause. It was clear Ken was to blame, yet he was the husband I had loved for so many years. Leaving him was something I greatly resisted. Without finding an answer, I could only spend my days in turmoil. One day, as I was getting through the days, Ken said he needed to talk. My second life is to live with the woman I love. I've filed for divorce, so get out. Without any context, Ken suddenly blurted it out. As soon as I sat down in front of him, he snapped at me. What? You filed for divorce? I couldn't comprehend the meaning of Ken's words and repeated them back to him, parrot style. Ken spoke dispassionately, a sinister smile on his face. Yeah. You haven't been able to handle the housework properly recently, have you? For a wife who is supposed to support her husband, that's a fatal flaw. That's why I've found a new lover. It had to be done, right? With a confidence as if justice was on his side, Ken declared. But I knew the truth. It was the other way around, and Ken's explanation was far from satisfactory. It was Ken's infidelity that had caused my physical and mental distress. I was deeply disappointed by Ken's claim that I was at fault. Being cheated on was bad enough, but I was reminded anew of just how selfish Ken was. In that moment, various emotions swirling inside me quickly led me to an answer. Understood. I'll get ready now. I answered emotionlessly and began packing frantically to leave the house. I thought he might show some humility, but I was naive. Thinking about it made me want to leave this house as soon as possible. After stuffing some personal belongings and clothes into a few bags, I headed for the front door without a word. Hey, aren't you going to say anything? You've had such a good life for a long time thanks to me. And oh, I'm leaving everything about Sally up to you. Ken unilaterally threw these words at my back as I was leaving and then retreated back into the room. Once outside, I closed the front door with all my might and then said to myself, "Goodbye. I'll tell you everything I want to say later." About an hour later, my phone began vibrating incessantly. The screen displayed, Ken. Checking it, it seemed that in the brief moment I was distracted, I had received dozens of calls from him. Annoyed by the noise, I answered the phone. "Hey! What's going on? I didn't hear anything about this." As soon as I answered, Ken's panicked voice reached my ears. Just as I imagined, Ken was finally starting to realize the nightmare that was about to descend on him. To think things would turn out this well, he truly was a foolish man. Any affection I might have had for Ken, who I had been with for so many years, was nearly gone in my heart. This man was no longer the one I had loved, but had degraded into a complete stranger who insulted and tormented me. While I remained silent, Ken ranted and raved in a panicked state. Towards such a Ken, I said emotionlessly, "It seems you've finally noticed. Don't rush, the fun is just beginning." Imagining Ken calling me with a pale face, I felt a muddy joy spreading in my chest. Why was Ken so panicked after driving me out? What was he trying to tell me? To explain the reason, I need to go back to shortly after I was diagnosed with depression. On a day when my lethargy continued, my phone rang with an unusually cheerful melody. Checking the screen, I saw an unfamiliar phone number. "Hello?" Normally, I wouldn't answer such a suspicious call, but for some reason, that day I did. "Hello, Kate? It's Mia. Remember me?" I was so taken aback by the familiar voice and name coming through the phone that I accidentally dropped my phone. Scrambling to pick it up, I quickly responded. "Mia? Is it really you?" "Yes, it's Kate." Tears were streaming down my face as I spoke, and Mia seemed surprised by my reaction. However, as I explained in fits and starts, Mia understood and spoke to me gently. "It must have been tough. I'm sorry I haven't been in touch. Actually, I've been suffering from depression for a long time too. That's why I couldn't contact you. But I've always thought of you, Kate, always kept you in my heart." Mia's words conveyed undeniable pain and sadness. To think that Mia had been suffering from depression just like me. Now I can painfully relate to how Mia felt during the years we lost touch. However, having attained a happy life, I had forgotten about Mia. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Before I knew it, both Mia and I were apologizing tearfully to each other. As we both calmed down a bit, the conversation turned to possibly meeting in person. It had been over a decade. Neither of us would be the same, neither in appearance nor in spirit. Being two people who had shared the same pain, we understood well what a burden this reunion could be. But we decided to overcome it. We agreed on a date to meet again. On the day of the promise, I felt a stirring in my heart that I hadn't felt in a long time, and I was restless from the morning. Having been diagnosed with the illness, I hadn't even had the spare energy to care about my appearance, and I couldn't even apply makeup properly. I found myself laughing a little at my current state, the first time in a long while. I didn't even know why I was laughing, but somehow it lightened my heart. When I arrived at the meeting place on time, Mia was already there. "Mia!" Without realizing it, I called out her name loudly. Mia noticed me and waved back with a smile. Though it had been decades since we last met, Mia seemed just the same as before. Of course, that couldn't literally be true, but the aura around Mia was unchanged. "Kate, it's really been a long time." Mia came over and hugged me tightly. Taken aback for a moment, I then hugged her back just as tightly. Rejoicing in our reunion, we proceeded to a restaurant Mia had reserved. Anticipating deep conversations, Mia had chosen a place with a calm atmosphere and private rooms. Once we were led to our private room by the staff, we took our seats and ordered coffee. "I've aged, haven't I?" Mia said, laughing mischievously. Although the air around her felt just like it did back then, sitting face to face in calmness made us both realize that indeed, we had aged as Mia said. Yet, Mia was still beautiful and looked much younger than her age. "You say that, and it almost sounds like a humble brag," I responded, surprised to find myself able to joke and laugh again. We continued with light conversation for a while, but as the coffee was served, Mia started speaking more seriously. "I'm sorry to bring this up after not seeing each other for decades." Yes, Mia must have gathered the courage to contact me because something significant had changed. "Actually, I'm getting married." Mia's unexpected announcement caught me off guard. Sensing my confusion, Mia hurriedly continued. "I'm really sorry. It's a tough time for you. But I just had to tell you." Thinking back, Mia must have intended to share this news with me when she contacted me. Yet, I had gotten carried away talking about my own situation. "Don't apologize like that. It's my own issue." "Congratulations. Was he someone who was with you during the tough times?" At my question, Mia smiled awkwardly. "No, I met him about a year ago. It was while I was preparing to re-enter society." Hearing this, my heart suddenly began to race. The sudden ill feeling made me instinctively clutch at my chest. "Kate? Kate, what's wrong?" Noticing my change, Mia turned pale and supported my back. "It's okay. Maybe I'm just overwhelmed because we've been talking so much." I mumbled, trying to dispel the unpleasant thoughts beginning to cloud my mind. Ultimately, I had to leave earlier than planned that day. I apologized repeatedly to Mia as I hurried home. The troubling thought that filled my mind. It was the notion that Mia's fiancé might be Ken. When we reunited and embraced, I recognized a scent I had become familiar with daily over the past year. I initially thought it was coincidental, but as Mia talked about when she met her fiancé and other details, my suspicions slowly turned into conviction. This realization made my suffering even more profound, but it was clear from Mia's demeanor that she was unaware of Ken's and my relationship. The Mia who had always cared so deeply for me wouldn't torment me without cause, of that, I had no doubt. I felt powerless, trapped in my ongoing distress. However, I couldn't possibly break the news to Mia, who seemed so happy. Then, I received another call from Mia. "Kate, I've figured everything out." It was something trivial that had led Mia to discover the relationship between Ken and me. "I met your daughter yesterday." What Mia relayed next was shocking. As Mia and Ken were returning from a meal out, they were abruptly approached by a woman. "Dad? What are you doing here?" I later learned that Sally had secretly returned to celebrate my birthday. That's when she accidentally ran into Mia and Ken on the street. When Mia confronted Ken, he confessed that he had been silent about her being his daughter from his previous marriage. However, Mia did not believe Ken's words. Because the young woman she had met by chance, Sally, was the spitting image of me when I was younger. At that moment, everything clicked for Mia. Why had I suddenly started suffering that day? Mia, without absolute certainty, reached out to me to share her suspicions. And after speaking with me, she confirmed her thoughts were correct. "Kate, I've done something irreversible. It's not something a simple apology can fix." Though Mia was tearful as she spoke, she didn't use her ignorance of Ken's relationship with me as an excuse. In fact, Ken had even hidden the fact that he was already married. Mia was a victim just like me. "Yet you thought of my welfare and said nothing." I accepted Mia's tearful apology and made up my mind. "Mia, we can't let it end like this, can we?" Ken believed Mia had forgiven him. He also believed he had successfully deceived Sally. He had been pressing Mia to marry him quickly, to avoid any suspicions. He took everything from us. Let's take everything from him in return. Thus, Mia and I decided on our revenge against Ken. Pretending not to know everything, we pushed Ken into a corner from which he couldn't return. Mia and I meticulously planned, and I waited for the day Ken would declare our divorce. Indeed. Thus, Ken was being manipulated right in the palm of our hands. After I left the house, I contacted Mia. "It's done. He filed for divorce on his own." I checked with the city hall just to be sure, and the divorce papers were officially accepted. Upon hearing this, Mia sent a message to Ken. I cannot marry someone like you. I am Kate's best friend. Ken tried to call Mia after receiving this message, but she had already blocked his number. That's why, in a panic, Ken ended up reaching out to me. As planned with Mia, I headed to her apartment. It wasn't the room Ken used to visit, but a new one that Mia had rented. The thought of him being in that room was too creepy. I moved out right away, Mia said self-deprecatingly when I asked why. This decision was, of course, considerate of me. Grateful once again for such a thoughtful friend. When I arrived at Mia's apartment, I found Sally there. Afterward, I told Sally everything. Hearing our story, Sally agreed to join in our revenge against Ken. He's the worst. I no longer see him as a father. He will pay dearly for the mental stress he caused his daughter. Although it was regrettable to come together under such circumstances, the three of us laughed a lot that day. Despite each of us carrying our own wounds, we comforted each other and talked about the future. A few days later, we were ready to confront Ken at his house. Ken was shocked to see us, but we didn't hesitate to enter. I called your office several times. Why didn't you answer? Mia was the first to speak, and Ken's face turned bright red. It was you. Because of you, the reputation I built up is now in ruins. Mia had indeed called Ken's company pretending to be his fiancé, stirring widespread rumors since it was known internally that he was married. The president is considering disciplinary action because of you. How will you take responsibility for this? What responsibility? Whatever happens to you at work is your own doing, isn't it? Do you even understand what you've done? How many lives do you think you've ruined? As I raised my voice, Mia and Sally chimed in. That's right. It's like marital fraud. Showing such behavior in front of your daughter is abuse. The relentless accusations from the three of us made Ken's face grow even paler. He hadn't anticipated being confronted by us while worrying about his company. The threat of legal action was what finally pushed Ken over the edge. Please, I'm begging you. Don't make me suffer any more than this. Realizing he had no way out, Ken began to apologize, his eyes brimming with tears. Stop, those cheap tears. They're worthless. Mia coldly dismissed him as he knelt on the floor. Don't embarrass yourself in front of your daughter any further. Acknowledge what you've done and be prepared. Perhaps my words were the final blow, as Ken collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Let's go. I told Ken that we would be filing a lawsuit for damages, then led the others out of the house. For a while after, Sally and I stayed at Mia's apartment. Our anger towards Ken hadn't subsided, and none of us had any intention of dropping our charges against him. We unanimously agreed never to see Ken's face again, and our complaints were communicated through a lawyer. With such perfect evidence and the fault so clearly on the other side, we can probably strip him of everything he's accumulated. The female lawyer, empathizing with our suffering, struggled considerably as she prepared for the trial. Ever since then, Ken has suffered a great shock and fallen ill. It's all his own doing, yet he's in the hospital now. How convenient. Excuse me. While excitedly speaking, the lawyer suddenly stopped herself. No, you're absolutely right. What he put us through, it's still not enough. But we'll make sure he pays us back in real terms. As I said this with a smile, everyone else laughed too. Although Ken is Sally's father, I was concerned about her, but she was stronger than I had imagined. Sure, he might be my father, but I have no lingering feelings for him. His existence will have no impact on the path I choose in life. As a mother, I'm filled with joy, but also a sense of guilt remains. Yet, I felt proud of Sally's strength. As planned, the trial proceeded and we literally took everything from Ken. Just as he had feared, he lost all his credibility at work and received a demotion. The three of us rejoiced at this news. Being demoted is far worse than getting fired. Despite having a family, he messed around with another woman, got caught, and now faces a huge demand for alimony. Now he must continue to work under scornful eyes and contempt every day. Even if he wants to quit, he can't, considering the alimony he has to pay us. It's truly a living hell. It seems we broke his spirit with our actions, but now he might finally understand just how much Mia and I have suffered. He should carry that guilt for the rest of his life. Losing the trust of those around him, no one will help a person who has betrayed others. This is the end that befalls those who hurt others. As for us, unlike Ken, a bright future awaited. Mia had been preparing to re-enter society despite a long battle with illness. It was to start her own company. Of course. A fashion design company. Mia had absorbed everything she could while working at a major company, despite the struggles. She took her time to output all that knowledge, leading to this decision. It got a bit lost in the shuffle, but when I announced my marriage, I also wanted to tell you this news. With that, Mia made me an astonishing offer. Kate, I need you at my company. I've decided that long ago, will you help me? Mia opened the door to my long-forgotten dream again with her words. Surprisingly, Sally was also involved in this plan. Sorry for keeping it a secret. But since then, I've talked a lot with Sally. Mia revealed that in a few years, Sally would join our company too. Sally admires you and wants to be a designer, though in a different field. We need her talents too. Indeed, Sally was working as an interior designer. But it was news to me that she had been inspired by me. When I was little, I saw your design notebooks. Even though my field is different, you were the start of it all. Sally said this, laughing yet serious, seeming to hope that I would start anew. Can I really do it? While I was thrilled, unlike the two of them, I had never worked as a professional. That doesn't matter, I've made this decision as a professional, and I'm sure of it. Mia dismissed my worries in an instant. After losing touch with Mia, I had completely forgotten my own dreams. Now, those dreams were about to move forward with Mia and, soon, my daughter Sally. We had all suffered through tough times together. Thinking about that, I felt we could overcome any difficulty. I took the hand Mia offered and looked forward to life ahead. Just like in our student days, I was sure fun times were starting again. As excitement built up inside me, I found myself fully reconciled with my once best friend.